Good. It was, productive for us. Saw growth pretty much top to bottom with the roster. And I think one thing that's been consistent, this goes back to January, the work ethic and the attitude's been pretty good from the onset. So happy about that. And then I think our leadership base was surprisingly good, prior to spring ball, and it continues to grow too. So I think we have a lot of guys that are really invested in, thinking right and acting right, doing those kinds of things. So, finishes this phase. I think the couple truisms have been true over decades, for us at least, and probably everybody. As we move forward, our best guys have to play their best, and based on what they've done thus far, I think they understand that. And then certainly for us, and probably again most people, but for us especially, we're going to need good stories each and every year. And I think this year it's really kind of interesting, but it's all about growth. All that stuff is focused on growth. And this year, I think, again, we don't have a lot of established, quote unquote, there's really no incumbents at any position, but not as many true veteran guys, if you will. And as we stand here right now, you can ask about starters and all that, but there are going to be a lot of things that are going to be decided, I think, in August, and then maybe even into the season, which is not a bad thing because I think we have good competition, but it's a really dynamic process. And I apologize ahead of time. I don't know if we'll put out a depth chart this summer, just because all it does is get parents mad, and nobody knows the answers. I tell our guys every year it doesn't really matter until we start playing, what the depth chart says. So we'll see what that looks like. But the interesting part about it, we've got a lot of guys that made big jumps since January, and then conversely, there's going to be a lot more of that, I think, hopefully going on from today until the end of August and into camp. That's the neat thing about college football. Players change a little bit more dramatically than maybe older guys do. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We got basically 5 weeks till June, a couple of weeks here to finish up the academics, finals week, and then they've got a couple of weeks in May. After that, depending on when their finals finish, we'll see them early June and start the summer program. I think our guys really understand just how important all this stuff is, and just working at it daily, the value of that, if they'll embrace that a little bit. And the last two things, just finish up with, certainly happy for Caleb. I don't know if things happened yet today, but happy for him being drafted last night. And I'm guessing we'll have, a handful of guys get drafted today or locate, end up in their locations as free agents. So always happy for guys to get that opportunity. And then the other thing, just, that you guys have probably figured the same thing out, but it is kind of a sad commentary, just maybe not a sad commentary, but a pretty emblematic of where we're at in college football. It's August 26th right now, and, none of us still know what the rules are moving forward. So I don't want to say it's frustrating, but it's just, it's pretty indicative of the last couple of years. And hopefully, semi-optimistic, hopefully all this stuff will get settled at some point, and hopefully by July 1st, we'll know what the hell we're doing here moving into the season. So, just a little side commentary, but not much you can do about it. So we'll see where it all goes. But I'll throw it out for questions.
So, David?
Yeah, Kirk, just really quick, what's the status of James Dunker? I know he wasn't out there today. Kind of what's the latest on him?
He's been nursing, not even nursing. He's been playing with a little bit of a orthopedic issue, and really it's nothing major. So he got that addressed this week. We've got, you can count on how many guys were out today, but really, as far as I know, nothing that's going to inhibit where we're at in August. So that's the good news. If there's good news, you hate to have anybody miss time or be out medically, but he should be back here in a short time.
Hey Kirk, wanted to ask about the vertical passing game. It just seems like there's a lot more confidence in the quarterback room to throw the ball deep right now. I guess, would you agree with that, or I guess what are you seeing from the passing game?
Yeah, probably more so today than we've had maybe as much all spring, but I think we have a healthy room back there. I say that, and the starter's not practicing right now, but there's been good competition. The guys are doing a good job of moving along, and I think we've grown more in one spot than any spot on our team. It's probably the receiver group. I think we're just probably a little bit more veteran. Guys have a better understanding, and it's probably true of our whole offense right now. This is year 2, so everybody's moving a little quicker. I say everybody. The guys that have played are moving a little quicker, and hopefully it'll be, that'll come in time.
Speaking of receivers, noticed a couple of really nice plays from KJ Parker. Obviously the fall start too, but kind of what have you seen from him this spring, and Also, Weechin, how do you think you can get him maybe a little more involved in the offense?
Yeah, let's start with the full start. Nobody was further from the ball than him, right? And, you know, I've coached receivers about 48 years, but pretty sure they're supposed to watch the ball. But that's been a problem all spring. That's an experience, I think, typically. And, you know, so anyway, but he's a great young guy. He really did a good job last year. He's on our scout team and tortured our defense. He's really kind of fearless out there, aggressive. Got a really good attitude, and I don't think he realizes he's a first-year guy, and what he weighs. I don't think he's quite aware of that, so he plays bigger than that. But he's done a good job, really good job. And, you know, talked about guys progressing and stories. You know, these next 3 months will be huge for him. It's true of everybody, but, you know, if you're thinking right, you know, now, instead of running, you know, whoever we're playing's plays, he's been running our offense this whole spring, and hopefully he'll take this experience and be more refined when we get out there in August. And I mean, it's our whole team, not just him. And we had about 63 false starts today, and that's everybody. It's not just the center, not just the quarterback. It's everybody being involved in that. Sorry.
Just with Jackson, I guess just from the time he got onto campus last year to this point, how would you kind of categorize his growth? And just as a housekeeping, is he still a walk-on, or is he on scholarship?
He's still a walk-on, yeah. He's doing a good job. Yeah, he's a really, really good young guy, and still again trying to figure out how he got here. I mean, he showed up in August, the first time I met him and his folks. But then, you know, he ends up playing a couple games for us and did a really nice job. So he's growing, just like Hank's growing, and I think everybody that and Jimmy obviously is really drinking through a fire hose right now. It's tough, you know, when you come in, but he may be more than anybody. All the first year guys, they'll benefit when they get to August. At least having some experience in what we're doing. But no, we're pleased with the whole group of quarterbacks. They've done a good job.
We've had some guys in the portal here in recent weeks. I guess, how do you feel about, number one, it seems like you've got a lot of hits in the portal. Phil talked about the D tackles being really good.
Yep.
Obviously, Gronowski, we pick up George and South Dakota. Yep. I mean, do you feel like you're good now in the portal? And how would you assess kind of the portal success you've had thus far based on your viewpoint?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things to address there, but the guys that we have brought in, and I pretty much for the most part, however many years we've been doing this now, it feels like 10, but it's probably been 3, maybe, or 2. For the most part, I think most everybody's kind of been what we thought they would be for the most part. And you can't factor injuries into it. There's nothing you can do about that. And those certainly impede careers. But I think overall, you know, things that the guys that we brought in that we kind of thought we knew what they were, they've proven to be. So compliment are all the guys involved in personnel, the coaches and the personnel staff, and work they've done there. And our biggest thing has been just to try and supplement the team. So yeah, I think the guys that have come in here, the 5 guys that joined us back in January, are fitting in really well. And then I think they all have a chance to make some contributions, significant contributions this coming year or beyond. And then we're not done yet. You know, there are players out there right now that are looking, and hosted a couple this week we're waiting to get word on. But I don't think, you know, it's not going to be headline news necessarily, but it's going to, you know, make our team better and our roster better. It's kind of been the goal. And then, you know, the guys that left, you know, told the team the same thing. You know, what we don't want are guys that aren't sure they want to be here. It's just not good for anybody. And the one guy I'll single out is Brendan Sullivan. I always go back to like when Jake Rudock left and I'm brain fart right now. Gosh, Cody Sokol went to La Tech. You know, quarterback, it's a whole different animal because there's one ball, there's one position, and it's not like a guard or a tackle. They rotate. You know, the quarterback plays. So I can't say enough about the contributions Brendan made. He is as good as any guy in terms of the kind of person and his work ethic and competitiveness. As good as anybody we've ever had here. So I just wish him all the best. He's a tremendous young guy. Everybody here is a fan of his. He just, but it just, you know, I got it. So, you know, totally got it. Scott.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, I guess, the 105, which may or may not have.
So do I. Yeah. I want to ask you, but anyway, okay. Yeah.
Well, with the judge at least saying that this needs to be phased in, which is something that I think you and everybody else said a year ago needed to happen. How did this ball get dropped, first of all? And second of all, is it fair for you that you were so transparent with all of your players back in December, and a lot of them that could have been great depth pieces, or even competing for best special teams or depth spots here? So is it fair to you that you were actually, on the forefront?
Yeah, since I've been here, I counted them. We have a couple of things on the wall in there. I counted them one day. I think we've had 8 captains since I've been back that were came here as walk-ons. That's one of my first thoughts. But to your point that you really talked about, we had some guys who were just good team guys, that we had to tell back. We didn't have to tell apparently back in December, but I think we all felt it was the right thing to do. If we're not going to be able to guarantee a spot in the spring, thought the right thing to do is tell the guys then, allow them to stay with us. I mean, they're all welcome to stay through the bowl, take trips, and then come back and still go to the bowl. And a lot of guys found good homes, and I'm not saying, I don't know how many would have been starters ever, you can't predict that, but to your point, they're all good team guys that helped us go and operate well. So, you got a couple things. The 105 number is an issue, and that's a whole separate category. But the way we've gone about it, yeah. And, you deal with whatever comes your way, because, this is way out of my hands, so I didn't get too worked up about it. But I will be a little bit upset if they say, you can grandfather guys in. Our guys are gone, and to me it rewards the people that, in my opinion, maybe weren't thinking about the best of what's best for their players by keeping them, letting them. And we had, for the record, 4 or 5 guys that we just, said, hey, you're not on the 105, but you're welcome to stay in the spring too, and they've chosen to do that. But we've been transparent with each and every guy. I just felt like that was the right thing to do. That's how I'd want to be treated, and I think you owe that to every player. I'll be a little upset if it blows up in our face. It's going to be, and I'm not sure how we'll feel our roster if this actually is goes through in somehow, even if it's not grandfathered. I don't know where we go shopping for players right now. So, and then the other part of it, not to belabor the thing, but the guys we let go, we knew, like they've been here and they know the routine and they've been good team members, and so now you're going on blind dates with another, let's say 10 guys or 15 guys. Not really wild about blind date. I'm a little too old for that, I think. So anyway, so we'll see. But we'll deal with whatever happens. But that's my point about the whole thing. It's April 26th, and we still don't know what the rules are. Not to mention what's going to happen if we are 105. What about the guys that are injured? What about? Because it's not like the NFL. You can't pull guys off the street in October. They're not out there. So it's just that parts of this whole equation. Big news flash, but parts of this whole equation has not really been well thought out, unfortunately. But the good news is, overall, if it works, it's going to be a lot better. Just to give us some structure, because we have none right now. Hopefully, we'll try that for another year, because it's chaos. You guys know the examples better than I do. Some of the obvious ones out there.
We'll finish up with 4 and Q. Start here on the left, Corey.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about the portal as well, specifically Bryce George.
Yeah.
How hard is that you're an O-line guy, but
Yep.
you're recruiting a guy who played at a totally different level, really successful at that level. But is it different than recruiting a guy from high school because you have time to work with him, as opposed to Bryce who's got 1 year? How hard is that? Is that a difficult thing to do in your estimation?
Yeah, there's give and take. Let's talked about Sully here a few minutes ago. Both he and Jake Gill came over last June. And the good thing about, Brendan hadn't played a lot for Northwestern, but he played some, but he'd been in college and learned an offense and all that. And then Jake, same thing, he had played. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you come in, 3 or 4 years under your belt, it's a lot faster process learning. The nomenclature is different language in most cases. So that's part of it, and the techniques are going to be different too. They're going to be really different for him. But I think he's got the physical maturity. I really anticipate, as I look at it right now, we probably have a couple jobs open for jump balls for the offensive line, and he'll be in contention for one of those 2 spots probably. And so it's up to him to June, July, see how fast he can move forward. But I think he'll be able to handle it really well. And he was in here for a couple of days, which is really good for us to get to know him and get a feel for just how he thinks as a player and a competitor. So I think it'll be pretty good. Yeah, there's some benefits to being a little bit older and having done it, even if it's not the same place, same level. And we'll see how it goes. Everybody transitions differently than there's no set formula, but I don't see it being a big deal. I think he'll make our team better.
What would you like from your defensive backs today? Was there anybody that stood out to you?
We've had a couple guys really stand out over the spring, and Xavier's playing in the boundary now. He's playing free safety. He's done a good job. He's been out for about a week. Again, nothing. He'll be fine here. I think we've probably got three, 4 guys on the interior. Cleric's probably improved more than anybody. Maybe on our defense, he's really playing at a whole different level than he was 2 years ago. And then the corner, we've probably got about a 3-man battle, and then a couple guys working to be the 4th guy, that type of deal. So that's kind of what I was alluding to. I don't think we'll really know for sure until we get close to game time, and then we may not know then until we start playing to see who's who and what's what. But at least there are guys moving in the right direction. That's encouraging. TJ Halls, I think, had a good spring too. He's part of being in college, I think, is you get experience. You're in a program, you're learning, you're out there competing, and then if you're doing it right, hopefully you'll improve. And I think we're witnessing that with him and a lot of guys. Just he probably had a pretty dramatic jump this spring.
Blake?
Kirk, maybe to just piggyback off of that, you guys lost 8 starters as a defense. Are you seeing, just from a leadership perspective, a growth perspective, guys in new spots, are you seeing the things that you want to see from the group that you have so far?
I think so. And, Jaden Harrell's a good example. And I'm not saying it's the Jay Higgins story all over again, but, Jay's paid attention, Jaden's paid attention real closely. He's done a good job on special teams, and he'll keep competing for a job. But, he acts like a guy who's been here for a couple of years and knows the drill, and he helps hold other people to standards too. So it's, it's been good. Yeah, I think for as much as we've lost, I think got a lot of guys that are anxious to be out front and do a good job. Cohen's the same way, and so you get enough of those guys operating the way they should. That's hopefully it'll all come together as we move forward. But we're not there yet, but at least I think we're on the right path. And I'm it's a flip. We've been a little bit more veteran on defense the last couple of years, so we'll see who does what.
Last question, Tom.
Kirk, wanted to ask about the running backs and how Coach Young has kind of fit in with that group so far, and McNeil really kind of jumped out at me as a true freshman today. What you've seen from him?
Yeah, he's done a nice job. Start with Nathan. He's really poised. He's an impressive young guy. Came up for whatever game it was in season, maybe Wisconsin, I don't know. Came up unofficially, and then he and his mom and dad both came up with his dad unofficially. And a guy we were watching, and then made the offer to him once we get to meet him and know him a little bit better. And he's really done a good job. He's just kind of taking things in stride. And the good news there, I think obviously Caleb's moved on to the next step, but. That whole room is there's a lot of strengths in there, I think, and a lot of guys that are eager to play. You guys have seen Kamari out there, and you've seen Jazz, and I think we know what to expect from both those guys. So that's good. Now, TJ's back in the backfield full time, and so the fact that he's playing receiver, he's got some versatility that way. And Xavier Williams has really had a good spring, and he had a really good fall last year as a redshirt player. Talked about KJ, and he's another guy last year that just was very impressive every day of the year. Very quiet, but very impressive. Doesn't talk much, and is not a look at me guy. But boy, he just does things that are impressive. So I think that room's got good balance and good depth. And I'm not sure how we'll go about playing. We got time to figure that out, and we'll know more in August. But reason to be optimistic about that group, really. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.